Welcome, Bears fans, to a breakdown of Ben Johnson to the Bears. The Chicago Bears are hiring Ben Johnson to become the head coach of the Bears. And all I got to say is, wow, this kind of came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, like, you would have thought there would be some rumors, like a little bit more buzz surrounding Ben to the Bears, but instead, all we have is nothing. Just bam, Ben Johnson to the Bears. Okay. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the winners and the losers. Ben Johnson coaching the Chicago Bears. And I'm discussing the future of the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, and many more in this video. So let me know in the chat what you guys think of Ben Johnson to the Bears. It's time to bear down. Let's go. Let me know in the chat how you guys feel. So Ben Johnson, of course, the hottest name available this offseason, the biggest name available in the coaching carousel. He was shown during NFL divisional round more than Taylor Swift. That's how coveted this coach was. He was shown more times than Taylor Swift in the game between the Lions and the Washington Commanders. Ben Johnson is 38 years old. He has coached the Lions the last 3 seasons as the offensive coordinator. He led the last 2 offenses of the Lions to number 1 in points this past season and a 15-2 record the year previous. They were top 10. They were one of the best offenses in football. He has become the wizard of play calling in the NFL that everybody wanted to hire. He is the new Sean McVay, the new Kyle Shanahan, the new Matt LaFleur. And funny enough, all of those guys reside in the NFC. Let's kick it off. Losers, winners, winners, losers with the winners. You guys, you are winners. Bears fans are winners because the Bears finally have a coach that I believe in. It's been a minute since I believed in a coach of the Chicago Bears. It's been a minute since the Bears had a top-notch NFL mind behind their offense, behind their team, behind any area of their team. And Ben Johnson, he might not be proven as a head coach. He might not know how to go about the inner workings of building a culture and leading a group of men. He's a coordinator. He's a schemer. But that's exactly what you're getting off the bat. That's what we know he's great at, right? He might have to grow in the capacity of becoming a leader, right? But in terms of his X's and O's and his football, there's none better right now on the offensive side of the football than Ben Johnson. So you guys are winners because you're going to be watching an electric, fun offense from here on out. You're going to be watching an offense that's trying to score touchdowns by throwing the ball to their left tackle. You're going to be watching a more diverse, electric, power running game. You're going to be watching a Caleb Williams that develops, that learns how to play from the pocket, that hopefully doesn't panic when he's pressured, that hopefully is a little bit more composed, and hopefully Ben Johnson can tune into Caleb Williams' strengths and turn him into the generational talent that many people thought he was as a prospect. Maybe he will also be able to get the most out of the playmakers that the Bears already currently have. So the winners, first of all, it's you guys, man. It's you guys. It's the Bears fans because you finally have an offensive coach. You finally have a guy. And this is why I like Ben Johnson and the Bears. He's not just some pretty boy offensive play caller. In Detroit, he brought a physicality to his offensive scheme. They played with power up front. They were a run-first team at the end of the day. And he will bring that to Chicago. The run-first mentality, the growth of the offense that stems from an offensive line that dominates the point of attack, that extends to play action, that extends to explosive passing game. Right? So that is what you have to understand. Similarly to a Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, Sean McVay in Los Angeles, or Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. All 3 of these guys, their attack, first and foremost, starts with physicality and starts with the run game. And then it stems to the play action. It stems to the passing game. And it stems to, gaining explosives off of the running game, right? So that is first and foremost. Secondly, Caleb Williams is a huge winner. Caleb Williams will now have a guy that was a quarterback, that worked with Jared Goff and kind of resurrected his career, that has been around and is going to be able to groom Caleb Williams into becoming potentially a great quarterback, right? Caleb has many critics right now, many questions to answer. He showed flashes during his rookie season, but compared to Jaden Daniels, it's not looking good. Compared to even Drake May, it's not looking great. So he needs a coach in there that can fine-tune his abilities. We saw some flashes, but we need him to fine-tune his game, and Ben Johnson was one of the best available to do that. Now, I'm really intrigued to see how that fit goes. Like, how does Caleb fit within an offense that primarily in Detroit has been under center, has been play action heavy, has been run game centric from under center? So I'm intrigued to see how that fits. Like, does Ben evolve his offense? Does he try to intertwine some of the things Caleb did well this year, last year in college, and with his Detroit offense? Does he kind of completely rework? Maybe they play more from the gun in this offense, right? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes and how that develops. That is maybe one of the questions here that Ben Johnson has to kind of figure out. Does he believe that Caleb would be great from under center like Jared Goff was? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But that's an area that they'll have to evolve and have to adapt and have to kind of fine tune and figure out. But Caleb Williams is certainly a winner here. Absolutely. Absolute winner here, because it's going to take his development to a next level. The Bears offensive line, the talent's already there, and the talents that will come to the team. I think just in general, the Bears roster, the Bears general manager, the Bears building a team is going to be easier, because now you have an offensive coach that's well regarded across the NFL. All these players, these coaches, they're watching the highlights every week. They're watching the Lions. They're watching the Jahmyr Gibbs 60-yard touchdowns. They're watching the Amon-Ra go for 11 catches a game. They're going for Sam Laporta setting tight end rookie records. They're watching Jared Goff resurge. They're watching this, right? So the players are going to want to go there. Their players are going to want to go there. So the Bears offensive line, I think that's kind of an underrated area, because the Bears actually, from a grading standpoint, all these players mostly were above average talents from a grading standpoint, according to PFF. From like an analytical standpoint, the O-line was actually a little bit better than people give it credit for, from an individual standpoint. And I think what it needs more than anything, more than talent even, is coaching. I think a lot of offensive line play is coaching, right? I've seen it with my Patriots. You lose Dante Scarnecchia, the play of the offensive line drops off. Dante Scarnecchia being arguably the best offensive line coach of all time. There's a reason the Eagles always have a great O-line, no matter if Jason Kelsey's there or Jason Kelsey's not there, right? Like, continuously you see the same teams, Chiefs, same teams have great offensive line play. And I think Ben Johnson will have an impact there, because we saw how he was able to take some of the talents that they had and they drafted, like Sewell, some of the guys that they already had there existing, like their left tackle, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow. He was able to, with scheme, elevate their play. So perhaps maybe all those players need is an elevation from the scheme, like a first-round pick in Darnell Wright at right tackle. Like, these guys maybe need a little bit of help from the scheme, maybe more so than just the individual teachings or whatever. The Bears wide receivers, no matter who it becomes, I think Keenan Allen is a free agent, but you've got DJ Moore, tight end Cole Kmet, even the running backs. We'll see if DeAndre Swift becomes a running back of choice within this offense. It will be interesting to see, but at least for the short term, whoever is there, they're going to be able to get an uptick in production. I could see DJ Moore very much being, an Amon-Ra-like player in this offense. You could see him running a lot of routes from the slot, a lot of those quick crossers across the field, even some of the option routes and things like that. He's got the quickness and even a vertical dimension that he'll bring to the table within this offense. You could see Cole Kmet get more involved, both as a blocker and a receiver. You could see them play more, perhaps, from under center. So that could change some things with the offense, right? But the Bears wide receivers are winners, of course. Dennis Allen could be hired as the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears. This would be a great hire, in my opinion, by the way. I'm a fan of Dennis Allen as a defensive coach. I don't like him as a head coach. I think that's proven to be correct. He wasn't good with the Raiders. He wasn't good with the Saints. And he got his quarterback of choice with the Saints. Didn't exactly work out. But in Chicago as a defensive coordinator, I thought at his best in New Orleans, he was a phenomenal defensive coordinator. He gave much of the NFC fits. He had the Saints defense ranking near the top of the list in the NFL year in and year out. In run defense, consistency there. In coverage, they play a very aggressive. They often play a lot of man. You saw that with Marshawn Lattimore over the years. He has a lot of diversity in his blitzes and his sim pressures that he brings to each game. He often got the best of Tom Brady in Tampa Bay too, Dennis Allen, because of the confusing element of the defense, because you never really knew who was coming, who was going, who was dropping, who was blitzing. And he had a wide variety in terms of his defense. So very versatile defense. I think Jalen Johnson will obviously be a centerpiece to that secondary. They've got a good secondary there already. I would be intrigued to see if they add to their front. I definitely think they could use a D tackle or another defensive end to rush the quarterback. I think that was part of the problem with the Matt Eberflus build, is this was a guy in Matt Eberflus who needed a front four to get to the quarterback, and they didn't really have that. But the Saints had, guys like with Dennis Allen, like Trey Hendrickson, guys like Cam Jordan, right? Guys like the big D tackle, David Onyemata. They had a good front. So, and good linebackers continuously working through there, which the Bears definitely have good linebackers. So I wouldn't really be worried about that, but it's the defensive line I think they could work on. But Dennis Allen's a great coach. I think in this NFL, he's a good coach because he brings diversity to the table, and I'm all for diversity. I think one of the problems in Detroit with Aaron Glenn was too much simplicity, too much of the same. I think that's part of the problem with Eberflus, is he's a little too simple defensively. I think that's the problem with Aaron Glenn as well, and they were just unwilling to adapt. But I think Allen is more willing to adapt. So I think that would be a great hire. And it takes a lot of pressure off of Ben Johnson as the coach, because Ben can simply be the offensive head coach, and he has a head coach in his own right, Dennis Allen, who can work the defense and lead his unit like he did for Sean Payton, right? So that's a big deal. One of the winners as well is Lions and Bears rivalry. That is a big winner, in my opinion. If you're a fan of the NFC North, this is a dub. Like, you get Ben Johnson in the division still, and you get to keep him around and have that little bit of a rivalry where the Bears stole their coach. The Lions fans are going to be all upset and crying about that, and they're going to see him as a traitor, and all of a sudden they're going to hate him. Right? That is great. That's great for football. That's great for ratings. That's great for a rivalry. That's great for viewing, right? You want to see Ben Johnson go toe-to-toe with Dan Campbell, right? Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. I'm looking forward to that for sure. I'm looking forward to that 100%. But then you also get to keep him in the division. That is not good for the teams in the division, which is where we're going to transfer over to some of the losers here. I think the NFC North in general is a loser. Like, especially the defenses, because now Ben Johnson is going to be calling the offense for Caleb Williams and this Bears attack that already has pieces there to work with. And the defenses, like Detroit, like Green Bay, like Minnesota, they're not going to be a fan. Brian Flores is probably pissed right now, because Brian Flores was one of the best defensive coordinators, if not the best defensive coordinator in football this past season. And the only guy that got him continuously was Ben Johnson, and he's staying in his division unless Brian Flores gets hired somewhere else. But that's obviously a loser right there, the NFC North. The Aaron Glenn, if he sticks around with Detroit, he might get hired somewhere else. But the Detroit defense, they're going to be pissed off because Ben's going to know all of their players, their inner workings, their scheme. The Lions are going to be mad in general because they're going to know all their players. The Bears are going to know all the offense, the core of the offense, the identity of the offense, all the individual talents, what Amon-Ra likes, what he doesn't like, what Gibbs does well, what Montgomery does well, what he doesn't do well, what Goff does well, what Goff doesn't do well. So this is all losers across the board. And the Lions offense is a huge loser. I don't know who's replacing Ben Johnson as the offensive coach, as the OC there in Detroit, but I think Jared Goff is a huge loser. Huge loser. I think, he's been a guy that's, I think, greatly benefited from scheme, greatly benefited from the talent around him, but greatly benefited from protection up front from the offensive line, probably more than anything, and the usage of play action and some of the things that Ben Johnson brought to this offense. And I think Jared Goff's play might never have been better than the last 2 seasons. I could very much see him dropping to a level like we saw in LA with the Rams, where he peaked and then he kind of fell off a little bit. And that could definitely happen if the Lions are not careful. But I think that not only will Ben, when they play each other, know how to kind of attack Jared Goff, but also at the same time, he's losing Ben Johnson as the offensive mind that I feel like set Jared Goff up for success, like Sean McVay did previously, or like Shanahan did for Garoppolo and Purdy, or like LaFleur has for Love, right? So like these offensive minds have such an impact on the game, such an impact on the quarterback, such an impact on, in my opinion, they are like the second most important thing you could have on a team. Like the quarterback is the most important. If you've got a Mahomes, if you've got a Lamar, if you've got an Allen, if you've got a Burrow, you're going to be winning. You're going to be in the playoffs. But if you've got a great offensive coach that can set up even like an average talent at quarterback to be successful, you're going to be well ahead of most teams, right? So, I think that is a big deal. So Ben Johnson, that him being away from the Lions is a big deal. Is the Lions roster coming with Ben? It is not coming with Ben. But that being said, the Bears have plenty of talent on this roster, and they're going to be able to continue to add talent through the draft, through free agency. They've got they've got some weaponry there. They've got Rome. That will be interesting to see how Rome develops in his second season. He would be considered a winner, right? DJ Moore is a winner. Cole Kmet is a winner. Their running back situation, winners. Offensive line, winners. The offensive line is the area where I think people will be surprised, I think, in the improvement. I think there will be improvement, especially if Caleb can kind of figure out how to be better in terms of his delivery, how to be better in terms of his pocket awareness and his ability to get the ball out. If Ben can develop that area of Caleb's game, that is going to completely change this offense. Just play with more rhythm and more composure within that pocket, I think. Some more losers here. I think the teams that weren't able to hire Ben Johnson, the Jags for Trevor Lawrence, maybe they go with a Liam Cohen or something like that, but I certainly think that they wanted somebody like Ben Johnson, so that's a loser in my opinion. Trevor Lawrence is a loser. The Jags offense is a loser. The Raiders, I think, are huge losers. I thought the Raiders were going to hire Ben Johnson because of the Brady influence and the potential cash that was on the table there, and because there were no rumors about the Bears. Literally no one knew what was going on with the Bears, right? So it just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, oh, Ben Johnson, the Bears. Like a lot of people weren't even talking about it. It was floated out there by fans, but it's different to be floated out there by fans than it is to actually happen or actually be discussed. So this was kind of under the table. This was kind of out of nowhere. And the Raiders, I think, are blindsided by this because the Raiders were probably going to offer a big contract to Ben Johnson to be their head coach. Now they've got to pivot. Do they go somewhere like another Brady guy like a Brian Flores, or do they go more of an offensive approach? Maybe Liam Cohen from Tampa Bay. The Brady also has connections there. Or maybe do they go with, somebody else, like a proven coach like Mike McCarthy or something like that? So we'll have to see what the Raiders end up doing, but I certainly think they are losers because, like I said before, Ben Johnson was the gold star. Ben Johnson was the big ticket. Ben Johnson was the guy in this market. Mike Vrabel was the proven guy, the proven winner, and I'm happy that the Patriots hired him. But in terms of the high-end potential of a coach, I think Ben Johnson had more potential of any coach as a head coach than any guy, just because of what we've been able to see from the modern NFL and how these offensive coaches have taken over the league and how they've been able to create success, right? So on top of that, I think this is kind of a weird thing to talk about, but it feels like the AFC has all the quarterbacks and the NFC has all the offensive minds. It's kind of like balance is restoring in the NFL. So the AFC has Lamar and Mahomes and Burrow and Allen and Herbert and Stroud and all these guys that have come to the AFC lately. And the NFC, sure, Jaden Daniels is on the rise, and we've seen good things from, other quarterbacks. Like Stafford is a legend and all that stuff. But at the same time, it feels like all the offensive guys are in the NFC. So that's kind of funny to me, but that's just the way I see it. I'm going to address the chat now, guys. Apologies at the top for the mic. I'm not sure what happened. I think maybe I changed something with my system, but let's check it out. What do we got here in the chat? It seems like a lot of arguing back and forth. I'm going to try to find some question. All of the NFC North losers. Bears went 1-5 in that division. Many said they would win this year. No, I hope nobody said the Bears would win this division this year. I hope not, Daniel. I hope nobody was that stupid. I had them finishing last in their division, I think. So I was shocked by the Vikings' development this season. They surprised me. But if anyone had the Bears ahead of the Lions and the Packers in that division, I think they're absolutely crazy. That being said, I think the Bears, it's going to be a rookie quarterback going into year 2. And like I said, NFC North are losers because, their defenses are losers. You've got one of the best offensive coaches in football playing you 6 times a year, right? You've got to play 6 games in your division. Okay? Ben Johnson's going to be a good coach in the league, I think. So it's a little bit of projection. But I think the NFC North is a loser. I think the NFC North would have much rather had Mike McCarthy. I'm just going to say that. I'm not sure who the best replacement for Ben is. It will be somebody in-house, and I'm not exactly sure who it will be. Quarterback coach, wide receiver coach. I don't know the inner workings of Detroit. I don't really know who that only Dan Campbell knows, and the guys in the building in Detroit, who truly is a great coach to take over that spot. I wouldn't know that answer. So I can't really give you anything there. This dude always doubted Detroit, but likes a coach after he leaves. I doubted Detroit. When? But at the same time, was I wrong? I don't know. They just lost to the Washington Commanders as a 9-point favorite. So I thought Detroit would be in the playoffs. I thought Detroit would win their division. I thought Detroit might even win the NFC in the regular season. I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl. I didn't pick them to go to the Super Bowl. But I was also right. So I don't really understand. Raiders says Raiders losers. The Raiders are losers. Absolutely. I think we'll have to see who they hire. So we'll have to see how this process goes, man. But I think the fact that Brady, out of the 2 options that he wanted most, Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson, they've both been hired. Now he's got to look a little bit deeper at the candidates. Is it Flores? Is it Cohen? Those could be 2 options. I'm not quite sure who would be on the list after that, but I would say the Raiders are losers for sure. And I think ultimately what deterred Ben Johnson from the Raiders was the quarterback. I think what ultimately pulled Ben Johnson to Chicago was Ben Johnson working with Caleb Williams. I think that was probably the biggest factor, right? Adam says you're a punchable face. I'll take that as a compliment. I appreciate that, man. Who the Jags going to get now? My guess initially was Liam Cohen because, state of Florida, offensive coach. I think what he did for Baker Mayfield, he could do for Trevor Lawrence, very much so. I think they have similar skill sets. I think that Cohen's offense would fit Trevor Lawrence quite well. A lot of screens, RPOs, and play action. The quick game that Lawrence was always known for at Clemson, and then the deep shots that he's going to be able to achieve off of play action and stuff like that. So I think that would be a great fit personally. If they were to go to a different person, I would hate the Robert Saleh hire personally. I think they need an offensive coach. I wouldn't hate going with more of an established guy like McCarthy because he's had proven success. But I think that they could use no, Joe Brady's out there. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, has done a phenomenal job. I actually thought he would have been a great hire for the Bears because of the Caleb connection, and Cliff's done incredible with Washington. And I think maybe we have to look at his days in Arizona a little bit differently. He did get them to the playoffs at one point, and maybe Kyler, was part of the problem there more so than Cliff. Perhaps we were wrong about that. But yeah. Dream staff for the Bears. Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen. I'm not quite sure who else you're looking for there, but that's a pretty darn good combination. If you can somehow replicate that. And remember, the Detroit franchise is built off of the Saints model, right? Like a lot of the guys in Detroit are from New Orleans. Dan Campbell had experience there. Aaron Glenn had experience there. The front office. A lot of it is replicated from New Orleans. The grittiness, the toughness, right? So it's New Orleans. You think about Dennis Allen, New Orleans connection. Ben Johnson probably has respect for that. So I could see that being a great combo. Bringing in a coach that can coach his side of the ball like a head coach. But I think what Ben needs to also do is hire some sort of consultant, some sort of guy in there that is going to bring experience. He doesn't have to be involved on the day-to-day. He doesn't have to be involved in the game plans, but just having a guy that can consult with, an experienced head coach, an older voice that has been around the league that can help him navigate the early years of his career, I think would definitely help him. What about Aaron Glenn? For which team? I'm personally not an Aaron Glenn guy. I haven't been, I won't be, but I think that he will be hired. If I had to guess, I think he will be hired. Lions got a great core. Will be back. Not all Ben Johnson, says coach. They have plenty of talent. There's no doubt about that. But I do believe that losing an offensive coordinator like this is a significant hit to your chances. I look at an example being, and I'm not sure that Ben will end up having the same success as Kyle Shanahan, but when Shanahan left the Falcons, from 2016 to 2017, you look at the Falcons in 2016, and they were an all-time offense. They went to the Super Bowl. They up 28-3 on the Patriots. They lose. 2017, Shanahan goes to San Francisco. Falcons go to the playoffs. They're still a good team. They're 11-5, but their defense was like 20 spots better that year. They were top 10 defense that year. Their offense let them down in the playoffs. They lose to the Eagles and Nick Foles in Philly. They couldn't score in the red zone, right? Their offense let them down. So the defense got, a lot better. That was a better Falcons team that season after, and they fell off. And then they fell off in 2018, 2019, and Dan Quinn lost his job. And now all of a sudden, Dan Quinn's looking like a great coach in Washington again because he's got a great offensive coach with him as well, Cliff Kingsbury. So a lot of it does have to do with, if you're a defensive coach, you need an offensive coach. If you're an offensive coach, you need a defensive coach to pair with that's going to bring you success on the other side of the ball. Where will Aaron Glenn go? The Jets or the Saints? That would be my guess. So right now, Daniel, he says maybe the Bears do win the North. I don't think they'll win the North. I'm just going to say that. I don't think they'll win the North. They could. I don't know who they're going to sign. I don't know who they're going to draft. They have a chance to win the North, a bigger chance than last year. But I think they're very much in the playoff mix for sure. I'm not sure they're going to win a division as tough as the North, but I definitely think they're in the playoff mix because I think their coaching has gotten a huge boost. And coaching was one of the biggest reasons they were not a good team this year. They had enough talent. What else we got? I could see Green Bay winning the North. I could see Minnesota winning the North. I could see the Lions winning. All of them are going to be good. JJ McCarthy, we'll see how he looks in Minnesota, but they've got plenty of talent, especially on offense. The Packers still are very solid. Will the Bears hire an OC? Yeah, they'll probably hire an OC, but he won't call plays. That would be my guess. He'll be involved in the game plans, but not call plays. Lowdown says being in the mix is a great start. What's my take on Caleb Williams? Asked Jack. Bears fans might hate me for this, but I thought Caleb was pretty bad this year, honestly. Like, I just hate the negative plays. Like, I hate the sacks. I hate the holding on to the ball. I hate the out of structure stuff where it's like it makes no sense. Like, that should be an added element of your game and not your entire game, if you know what I mean. Like, I just sensed no rhythm, no reason to like what he was doing a lot of the times. I thought that his accuracy dipped from college to the pros. I thought that his deep ball was borderline atrocious at times. That being said, he's got so much talent, whether it be his quickness, his ability to buy time, his arm, his ability to throw off platform. Like, he's got a lot of talent if he can be honed in by a coach. And these guys have had to be honed in, right? Like, Mahomes sat on the bench his first season. Josh Allen took a year or two to get going. Lamar took a year really to get going, right? Like, Joe Burrow took a year to get going. Like, these guys, usually they take a year or so. As we saw last year, like, CJ Stroud played better last year than he did this year. Jaden Daniels probably is going to end up being better this year than he is next year. That's just, so like, sometimes it's just like, sometimes if you start off as a rookie really well, sometimes you kind of dip and hit a wall, so to speak. And sometimes you need a little bit of development. Caleb's a little bit younger than a guy like Jaden Daniels, so could use some development for sure. Yes. So you said, yeah. So I explained it. So they went 10-6 in 2017 because of their defense. If you look up their stats, they were like one of the best offenses ever in 2016, and they lost in the divisional round in 2017 after going to the Super Bowl, and they lost because of their offense. And then they fell off after that. Which direction will the boys go? I have no idea how to calculate what the Cowboys are going to do. I think we could be looking at what they do and saying, why didn't they just keep Mike McCarthy? But I don't necessarily like where they're heading. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I think they should go probably. It sounds kind of like they like Aaron Glenn, and it sounds like they've been interested in Prime, but I don't think that's real. I haven't really heard a lot other than the Aaron Glenn stuff. But could they go with the defensive coach? That's a possibility, more of a discipline coach. Do you think they will re-sign Keenan Allen? I think that this hire will certainly influence the ability to sign Keenan Allen, but I'm honestly not sure if Keenan Allen enjoyed the experience in Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to a warm weather place. I think that is kind of iffy. I'm not sure. Honestly, I think what they should do is they should go DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, have those three as your primary pass catchers, use the money on offensive line and defense. S. Reed says, so Dan Campbell is just a figurehead, no football knowledge, just a rah-rah guy. Honestly, I think he has knowledge, but I don't think he was the reason this offense was as good as it was. And the defense wasn't the reason they were winning games. That's just my opinion. I think Dan Campbell is good for the culture. I think Dan Campbell set a tone. I think Dan Campbell, his aggression, his mentality, his aura sets the team up for success and brings it a certain floor. But I think Ben Johnson brought the ceiling to the team. I think the Bears are actually going to utilize Tyler Scott. Interesting. He can be Ben's Jameson. Don't know if he's quite Jameson. That guy is literally like the Flash. But Tyler Scott, yeah, as a deep threat, that would make sense. I mean, DJ Moore can add some of that, but I could see DJ Moore becoming, if they move on from Keenan, becoming more of the inside guy, and then having Rome be the X, and then, somebody like Tyler Scott being that speedy Speedy Z or something like that. So you think Ben Johnson, why did I say Brian Johnson? Ben Johnson will be calling plays. Yes, absolutely. You wouldn't hire him if he wasn't calling plays. I don't think he would just be a general as a head coach. Shank says Pete Carroll. That's actually a really good name to come in as a consultant. I think that would be a great consultant, actually. Pete Carroll is probably a Hall of Fame football coach. I'm not sure if he'll make it in the NFL Hall of Fame, but he's a pro football Hall of Fame, if you know what I mean. T. Higgins will be a Bear. I highly doubt it. I don't understand, why would they even go for T. Higgins? Why would you spend the money there, first of all? And second of all, they're not going to be able to outbid teams like the Patriots that have like 130 million. So if he's not a Bengal, I don't think he's going to be a Bear. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense. Adam says it was Campbell's offensive scheme after firing Lynn in 21. He called plays, then handed it over to Ben. Do your homework. We'll see, Adam. We'll see how it goes. They still have lots of talent, so there's going to be no excuses for talent. I'm sure it will still be a good offense. I just don't think it will be quite elite. I think they will be taken down a notch. D. White says they have receivers. They need an O-line. Yeah, I agree. I think their O-line is a little bit better than you guys think, though. I think there's a little bit more talent there than people think. I think they need coaching. Willard says, why do the Bears do what the Bears do? What did they do? They might have actually made a good decision for once. How long do you think the Bears will give Ben realistically? To what? To like make this team a playoff team? Probably 2 years. If they're not a playoff team in 2 years and it's gone poorly and Caleb looks terrible, then I think he could be fired. They'll at least give him 1 year. That's no question. I'm pretty sure he'll probably have one of the more incentive, lengthy, expensive contracts. And I would expect the Bears to be in the playoffs by 2026. I'd expect them to be in the playoffs, not this year, but next year. Bears need a better running back. I agree with you. I think they'll look at that position, but maybe in the draft. Do I think Mekhi Becton gets signed for Ben to start revamping the line? He would certainly fit the type of lineman that would make sense for his scheme. Powerful and physical and freakishly like fast for his size. So it would definitely make sense. I don't think going a running back at 10 would really be ideal. But, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst pick. Steen says, I guess Tom Brady will be the next QB / head coach for the Raiders. Yeah, I hope so. That would be pretty entertaining. Vic Fangio would be nasty work. Hopefully he gets a Super Bowl this year. I don't see Fangio leaving the Eagles anytime soon. Trey Smith is definitely an option. Definitely. I think he should be near the top of the list. He's actually a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker too. And he's been one of the best guards in the NFL. So I think that would very much be a good move for sure. All right. I think that's it. We've been 40 minutes live. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate the Bears fans out there. Hopefully you guys are excited. I think you got a good one in Ben Johnson. I think that he is going to turn the Bears around in the right direction. I'm hopeful that Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson will be a sweet connection for many years to come in Chicago. I think this is the best possible hire the Bears could have made. And I'm a little surprised by it, to be honest. I'm surprised the Bears made a competent move. I really am. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can follow me on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube, The Bottom Line View. I cover all 32 NFL teams, including the Bears. And you can follow me here on Bleacher Report, the BR app. I'm here at least three times a week doing the NFL Daily Podcast. I had a show earlier today, got the call later today, and I'll be back tomorrow. So make sure to see you guys later. It's Mitch. Peace. Go Bears.